Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Laila Tarraf. I said rhyme it with carafe, so I'm thinking wine, which we might need a glass of wine today, because we're talking about a woman, strong like water, how she found the courage to lead with love in business and in life. And she had to become strong. She had to face a whole lot of adversity, find her resilience, pick herself up off the ground. I often say some people get a cosmic 2x4. My God, did she get it? And we're going to learn her story today, but how it's led her to helping women increasingly claim leadership roles in their business and politics. And in a time in our nation where people are seeking authentic leaders, Laila offers insights and inspiration for finding a natural balance and leading a whole person. Remember, it's not just part of you, it's the whole of you. With compassion and courage, intellect, and empathy. We should be a successful leader. A woman needs to be tough for a few years. That's what Laila believed when she took her own journey. She prized her ability to be strong, firm, and impassive. Like her hardline immigrant father, her strength became her power, and for a while she served it well in her business life. It enabled her to go toe-to-toe with powerful male leaders and excel in her career that took her from a recruiter of the internet division of Walmart to chief people officer of Peet's Coffee and Tea, the company that launched the craft coffee movement in America. But always being in control and never letting herself be vulnerable bled over into her personal life with disastrous results. In Strong Like Water, she found the courage to lead in love, business, and life. She shares her journey of awakening and profound transformation as a leader, a mother, and a woman. And for much of her career, like many women, she struggled to balance courage, compassion, intensity, flexibility, being respected, and being likable. It took a series of 3 crushing losses for her to finally unlock decades of buried emotions and integrate the parts of herself that make her both strong and soft. As she attests, I have come to see the true power that comes from concentrating on connecting your heart and your head, and I would say your soul and spirit as well. She's the eldest of 3 children. She's the dual role mediator between 2 warring parents and a mother's comforter. And at the age of 7, when her family left Lebanon for Las Vegas, her responsibilities expanded to serving a bridge between 2 cultures and 2 languages. This lady has gone through a lot, folks, and look at her now. I want you to take a good look at her now, because this is what resilience, this is what strength, this is what courage looks like. But she didn't just wake up one morning and it was there. She had to work at it. And that means that she had to heal herself. She had to go through the grieving process. She had to pick herself up, and she had to be willing to take the journey. Kudos to you for doing so, love, and thank you for coming and sharing it with us here today.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an opener. That's amazing. I'm happy to be here.
Let's lay it out. 3 crushing one after the other, which would flatten anybody. As I said, the cosmic 2x4, which is, the universe is always trying to get our attention one way or the other, but 3 crushing blows one after the other can defeat a lot of people, and it certainly knocked you on your backside for a while.
It's interesting. I do always say the universe gives you what you need to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, the universe knew I was a tough cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had held my hero persona, as I call it, so tightly for so long, I wasn't not going to let that down very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, for me, it took 3 losses in quick succession to really have me start looking at how I had been holding myself my whole life. which was this over reliance on being strong and capable, and I can handle anything. And oh, you don't have to help me. I don't have needs. I remember once a therapist I was working with said to me, so if you act like you have no needs, how do they get met? And I thought, oh my gosh, he's
Mm.
right. That was a really bad strategy.
Yeah, yes.
So I think, as you know very well, moments of adversity in your life give you opportunities for real growth. And for me, my daughter was 3 years old when her father passed. And to be honest, Sarah, if she hadn't been my life, and if I wasn't so committed at helping her to grieve the death of her father in a healthy way, I may have hid, I may have,
Yeah.
you know, tucked my head under the sand. But I figured out pretty quickly I couldn't help her to internalize that loss and to grieve in a healthy way unless I modeled that behavior and did it for her as well.
Mm.
So into the valley I went.
Yes. Then you had two more losses almost straight after that.
Then my father, 15 months after my husband passed, had a stroke at 68, and then deteriorated and passed away. And then my mother, same thing, stroke. And for each of those losses, I was able to be a little more present
Mm-hmm.
and a little more able to hold the pain and the grief that came with it. And in the end, I felt it was sort of poetic to be able to be at my mother's bedside right before Mother's Day, right? To usher her out, the person that brought me in this world that honestly, 5 years previously, I couldn't have done. I wouldn't
Right.
have had the emotional resilience, the courage to do something like that. And now I feel so honored. And there is that closure that is so important that I now have with her.
Yeah. Resilience. We don't get that without first being vulnerable.
Yes.
And that vulnerability is a gift to you, and it's also a gift and trust to others. It's your honesty. It's you at the very, very core. We're taught, as you were taught very well, to always protect your vulnerability. Don't
Yes.
trust anyone. Come out like a warrior. And
Yes.
I always say worry, it's warrior as well as warrior, because you're always worried about defending yourself. You're always in defense. You always believe someone's going to attack. You always believe you've got to be better than the others, the front lines. And we don't encourage people to be vulnerable or to get in touch with their feelings or to grieve over something. And when it does happen, it really does knock you sideways, doesn't it? But the gift that you were given was your daughter on more than one
Yeah.
level. Uh, but as you said, you had to do it for her, which meant
Yes.
that she was giving you a gift for you also to do it for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I grew up in a family that didn't feel their feelings. And so, you learn by how you were raised. I never really knew. I didn't understand. Now I try to say as much as I can to anybody, how you build resilience
Mm.
is just by allowing yourself to stay with the discomfort that comes up when you feel badly. And that can show up in different ways, as you know, right? It can
Yeah,
be a cognitive dissonance. It could be a pain in your chest. It could be your stomach tightening. Like there's all sorts of somatic and emotional ways that you feel. And it's lean into the resistance, stay with the discomfort. I never, I think I might have done it if I thought I knew what the payoff would have been. I just didn't see the point in being sad or being in pain.
right.
Because I
Yeah.
had so much will and
Hmm.
so much agency to just forget that. I'll just keep moving on. And I didn't realize that I was just becoming more and more emotionally brittle. And I love that we're talking about vulnerability so
Yeah.
openly now,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
and the path to strength is through vulnerability. And even just saying that, people are like, yeah, okay, but until you live it, you don't
Hmm.
really understand what
Right.
that means, right?
It's not being afraid to speak, to share, to be.
Yes.
Again, we have an enormous enormous, enormous, dysfunctional society, of which before the show we were talking about the last 4 years and how dysfunctional it was, and everybody in a state of hysteria and stress.
Mhm.
And only after a certain person left could people let their shoulders down and
Yeah.
breathe and realize how tense they had been. It was almost like being in a war zone waiting for the next bomb to drop. And
Yes.
and nobody felt that they could move forward or do anything because the anger was just ricocheting around the world. And it really has had a huge effect on people's psyche. And now, of course, with the pandemic as well, right now we're in a different battle, but we're all in this together. This is
Yes.
not just one country, it's the whole world. And this is where it's had to ignite compassion and
Yes.
empathy, but also that vulnerability to say, it's getting me down. You can't be a trooper all the time. You're going to have those moments where you just, I don't know if I can take anymore. I need to speak to someone, right? And
Yes.
until you've learned to be vulnerable and into that space, you don't allow yourself to go there, do you? But now you've been through it. So you know
Yes.
when to ask for help when you
Yes.
need something. There isn't a question, I don't need it anymore. I can get it myself. It's like, no, I
Yes.
need help.
I need it, and it's not a weakness to say
No.
it. In fact, it's a show of strength. And
Yes.
again, I think it's just beautiful. I would never have been able to lead throughout this last year the employees at my company at Allbirds, because we every week we went up and we did an all hands. And sometimes we had information about the business, but a lot of times it was just holding the space and
Yes.
allowing others to share how they felt. I actually brought in a grief counselor,
Mm.
and that really did training around recognizing grief, naming it, respecting our grief. Um, and we did a lot of self-care, right? Reminding people to take care of themselves. Because as we were saying, right, if you are not taking care of yourself, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually,
Yes.
you are always projecting that anger and that whatever is coming up for you out into the world. And that's exactly what you were just talking about. Even in my book coming out, I mean, my book is pretty raw, and I still have moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, did I just put it all out there? All my brokenness, all my flaws, all my cluelessness before I really started waking up to who I was. And I have moments where I think I'm going to be judged, or I've just committed career suicide. And my book's only been out for 3 weeks, but I can tell you I've had so many moments where people would say, wow, that was really brave. You said you're writing a book, but I didn't expect that. And then immediately they will say something like, I saw a lot of myself in your story.
Yes.
Or, thank you for saying that. Or I could really relate to this. Because though the details of the story, of course, are mine and unique to me, the story is really about the journey we are all
All on.
on, if we are lucky, right, to
Yes.
get to that point, which is that journey of self-discovery. Who am
Totally.
I? What's it
Hmm.
all about? Are all these things I've been believing and thinking really true? And really, I love when Ram Dass says, in the end, we're all just walking each other home, and we're walking ourselves home to our true selves, our true essence, and we're all doing it together. And I think this global pandemic, if it's done anything, it is a very visible and real example that we are all connected.
Yes.
So if we can be connected by a virus, we can also be connected by goodness too.
Oh, well, it's inviting the goodness. It's
Yes.
inviting that. It's inviting for us to step up. I'm always referring to the village. It's only as strong as everybody participates in it, including the village idiot. We need everybody in there. And when someone falls, the village is there to help them pick up. When somebody's celebrating, the village is there to celebrate. And they rely on each other for the strength of that village. If we could look at our own communities and understand that it's not about one person being more important or richer or bigger house or bigger car. It's about the measure of a person is, are they there? for someone else? Are they
Yeah.
contributing? Are they sharing their own good luck? Um, because it's only in that sharing that we really understand what caring really means, and the strength and the beauty of that caring, and how it really lifts everybody up. It unites everyone. Um, you're talking about the fears of everybody kind of judging you. I once commented to my family that I'm going to be writing a book, and immediately they went into the true British humor. Oh my God, you're going to air your dirty linen. And it's
Yes.
like an absolute fear of what I might say. My mum's passed now. My sister, I know, would never read my book anyway, so I'm okay there. But it was that they've always actually reprimanded me for being so honest.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you were the sensitive one in the family.
yeah, definitely. Um, and we kind of I grew up with, but I don't know how else to be. Now that doesn't mean I just throw everything out, but I
Yeah.
am what I am, as Popeye says, and I can't be anything else. And I lived my life trying to be everything else as you did, the strong one. And no, it doesn't matter. I'm there for you, and I'll bend myself into a pretzel for you.
Yeah.
But my back is hurting, my hips are hurting, everything else is hurting, my soul is hurting. And finally, I just became united with myself and say, to hell with that. I'm enough. I'm enough who I am. I'm not meant to be everything. I am the gift of what I am to whoever sees me. And that's all we need to be, really, isn't it? That's all we need to be.
That is the big that is the big learning of all our lives, right? We contort ourselves to fit into wherever we live with whoever our family is and our school and our society, to be part of the tribe, and we lose a little bit of ourself in that process. And then reuniting with our true selves and showing up authentically is not only how we reconnect with who we are at our core, but then how we connect with others. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of judgment and there's a
Mm.
lot of shame right now. And I think it starts because we're hard on ourselves.
Yes.
And so it struck me what you said, even the village idiot. And then if we can embrace that idiot and love him or her, as well as the medicine man, see
Yes.
with the analogy, that's that I really feel that's the tug of war that's happening right now, right? You see it in
Mm.
social media where
Yes.
people get canceled, and yet there's this other wave that comes in of people who are showing gratitude
Yeah.
and love and building community. And it really does feel like it's this tension right now, and this push and pull between our higher selves and our id, right? Our
Well,
shadow side.
I think the last 4 years, where we were bombarded all the time by negativity and sensationalism and everything else, that people
Yeah.
were just worn out. When
Yes.
it came to the end of his chapter or the end of his book, it was like, oh God, I didn't realize how stressed out I was.
Yeah.
And that then made us pause and look at it and go, okay, what was I buying? Now,
Yeah.
admittedly, it was in every news media, on every social media. You couldn't escape it, because it was there in your face all the time. But we do have a choice to choose what we react to. And in social media, which is an algorithm, what you are going to react to is what they're going to constantly feed. So if you're there
Yes.
supporting each other, that's
It's
the
built.
type of thing is going to keep building, right?
Yes. Yes. But you can only not react if you've built enough presence
Yeah.
and enough space to recognize when you are being triggered, when you're getting hooked. And if you aren't doing some sort of meditative or
Mm-hmm.
wisdom or introspective practice or yoga or talking to your friend or therapist or whomever, if then you're caught in it and you don't recognize it, and so you're reacting. You think you're responding, you think you're acting of your own volition, but you're not. You're really reacting, and I think ultimately that's what it means to wake up, which is
Yes.
also interesting because now we hear the word woke, and it's
Hmm.
coming from a lot of people who are not woke.
Yes,
So
I know. It's
it's
the new
getting very
trend word.
meta.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
getting very meta.
Yes. Yes. Strong like water, people go, but yes, but you can, you can dive into water, you can do this and that, but it's the Emoto experiment of the three glasses of water, one ignored, one given negativity, one given positivity. The ignored one didn't change, the negativity one literally turned dark, and the positivity one turned crystallized, which they could measure into positive
Amazing.
frequency, right?
Amazing.
We're
Yes.
70% water. So that is, how we speak to ourselves. And you were telling yourself, I'm tough, I can go through anything. And the universe said,
Yes.
okay, she's tough, she can go through anything.
Yep.
Let's throw it at her. Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my God, I've just shattered my water. But then water is extremely strong as long as it's allowed to be fluid, constantly moving, because it
That's
has an
right.
energy in it and a conduit in it, and it can't be stagnant. And if you're trying to be brave all the time, you're kind of keeping it stagnant because you've built walls
Yes.
around it. But when
Yes.
you
It's
allow it
got to
to flow
flow.
through you, that's when you discover your true strength, don't you?
Absolutely. In fact, I don't know if you picked up on the analogy, but strong like water. I named the book that after one of Lao Tzu's verses. Lao Tzu was an ancient Chinese philosopher. He was the father of the Tao Te Ching. I'm sure you know. One of his verses is called "Be like water." It's verse 78, and in that verse he says exactly what you just said. Whatever is soft and yielding is more powerful than
Yes.
what is hard and rigid.
Yeah.
And so, in this way, what is soft is strong. And I thought that was such a perfect way of capturing my learning as a result of this
Yeah.
journey. I really thought allowing myself to reconnect with my feelings, to soften, to grieve, to be sad, to feel crummy would weaken me, that I would lose my agency, that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, of my daughter, to make a living. And I was terrified to let go of that, right? That's why personal growth is so hard because you attach yourself and your
Yes.
identity completely to this story you tell yourself that it actually feels that if you let go of it, a part of you will die because you don't realize you are more than that story. And I realized in letting go of that all of these dualities that Lao Tzu and all these other philosophers talk about in life are all so very true, right? The yin and the yang, the
Hmm.
strength and the softness, the courage and the compassion. And when we realize that life is reconciling these dualities, living in the paradox, then things open up and you live with a lot more ease. Not to say that I don't have my bad days, but I very rarely now get so triggered that I just lash out in anger because I realize that really nothing matters that much.
Right.
It's all going to kind of be okay. And I can't really control it anyway. It's
Right.
going to happen. Right. And I
Yes.
asked, like, probably having a teenage daughter now is the thing
Mhm.
that makes me sometimes the most upset. And then when I do get upset, I just self reflect and I say, okay, what's happening here? And most often it's, I'm upset because of a story I've told myself in my
Mhm.
mind. Well, she's not studying, so she's not going to get a good grade, so she's not going to go to a good school, so she's not going to get a
Mhm.
good job, so she's going to be homeless. And I've
The
made
roller
myself
coaster.
sure none of it true. And I actually explained that to her one time where I went back and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry about that. Here's the story I told myself.
Mhm.
I went through it." And she goes, "Wow, really? You went through all?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "So that was not about you. That was about me." It changed our relationship.
Yes.
It made her realize that when I do get upset, it's because of the
Yeah.
ugly story I'm telling myself,
Yeah.
not because of what she's doing.
Right. Right. And teenagers do know how to push your buttons,
They
right?
do.
They really do. They're in that experimental stage in life. They're
They
in the
have to.
raging hormones. They're in that major foot to the pedal self-discovery. And everything is tested, and they also don't feel secure about themselves, and they've got the pressure of school and the social, am I liked, am I not liked, and all of that type of thing. I think it's a harder time for teenagers today with all the social media than it was in my day, where we didn't have any of that. We actually
For
had to go
sure.
out and make friends and make appointments to see them and hang out together and converse, and now everything is by through social
Well,
media.
and these poor kids, they are all anxious, they are all depressed. They have, what I really, really see is, while they are so intellectually smart because they're pouring all of their
Yes.
energy to schoolwork, they are interpersonally very weak. They're
Yes.
socially and interpersonally, they haven't developed those skills. And so they're a bit lopsided.
Yeah.
We weren't
Yeah.
as smart, but we knew how to make friends.
Right.
We weren't as afraid to go and talk to somebody we didn't know. We'd pick up the phone and call somebody. Now they're able to hide
Yes.
behind the screen. And then unfortunately, it's all this comparison,
I
which
know.
is the source of
And
suffering.
competitiveness and judgment again. You're talking about the yin and yang, and life is a balance. It's a seesaw. Now I'm a Libran. And so I spend my time constantly trying to keep myself in balance, but it's not about the rigidity. It's about the flow. The
Yes,
little up and down. What I don't want is the highs and the lows, because it
right.
throws you too much off the equilibrium. I did a show yesterday, which is going to be on the same week with you, which is all about brain training. And, we talk constantly about programming and, the patterns that we live by, which is, the pattern of society, the pattern of our ancestors, our family DNA. But we don't pay attention to the brain and how we can throw that off kilter. And that, through diet and through cognitiveness, we can kind of restructure our brain to be back into an equilibrium. When we're thrown so completely off one side, not only have you got to go through the grieving, not only have you got to go and find your strength and your courage and the why and everything else, but your entire body's been thrown out to sync. Mind, body, brain, heart, soul. And it is a recovery that you are going through of getting everything back into sync. And we can't always do it on our own. We do
Right.
need somebody else who can see it from a different perspective, who can give us skills and tools to kind of re-equilibrium ourselves. We spend so much money on outside things, but we seem to have a hesitation in spending money on our insides. Have you found that?
I think so. It's interesting because I'm an executive coach. Years ago, I remember a group of us coaches talking about how we found that men will invest in coaching
Mm-hmm.
much more easily than women, right? I think you're right. I don't. I spend a lot of money on on self-care and
Good
on
for you.
personal growth. And I think it's because, once you see the light, once
Yeah.
you realize like there's something here. When I after my husband passed, I went and I did a coaching certification. It really opened up my mind. It was very grounded in Eastern philosophies. And I really saw how I was not allowing myself to live as my whole, true, authentic self. But it took years and
Yes.
years and years for me to understand what that really meant, and lots of different modalities, because there's different ways you learn. So lots of somatic work with Reiki and energy
Mm-hmm.
work, lots of heart-centered work, lots of cognitive work. And I love the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
I agree with
Everybody
you.
needs,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Everybody needs a little bit of a different teacher. And this is why I decided to write my personal story and
Mm.
publish it, and go public with it. Because when I was telling people about these insights I was having and these learnings, uh, I would get Oh, yeah, I do that too.
Mm,
Oh, yeah, I really. What did you say? That would be good for me to know.
mm.
And I thought, well, if my journey can light the way for someone else, if I can say
Yes.
something that resonates with someone, it's on their journey where they are, if I can be the teacher in that moment, what else is there in this world? And maybe it won't take them 40 years like it took me, right? And if we all do
Yeah.
that, then you're creating this beautiful flywheel of all this goodness going back into the world. I mean, at the core, that is really what it's about.
Yeah. 100%. This is the reason why I do these shows. If people listen to these shows and just one
Yes,
nugget is a shift. Oh, okay. I haven't looked at it from that point of view. And well, one inspiration invites somebody to take that step forward. That's what it's about. The other thing I think that's extremely important that you've just said is life's journey. Everybody's constantly looking at the destination. Well, shouldn't you have it together by now? No, you're going to
yeah,
be getting it together to the day you die because
yes,
it's life experiences that are constantly shifting you and
yes.
expanding you and having you go in a different direction. That's the excitement of the journey.
And that is the journey. It's not the destination.
No,
I will tell you, I stalled my progress for years because I had this inner critic that said, I can't believe you're fill in the age. I can't believe you're 42 and you haven't figured it out. I can't believe you're 45 and you
yeah,
haven't figured it out. And if you're always berating yourself, you're
yes,
never allowing anything, right? It's just this judgment. And so the more it's in Louise Hay of the Hay Group, I
mm,
remember reading something from her, and I think she's in her 80s. And she said, after a lifetime
yes,
of being in this world, she said, I realized that the most important thing, the most important quality is self-love. And I remember reading that at the time. I was
yes,
like, oh, really? Huh. But gosh, do I get
yes,
it more and more every
yeah.
year, right?
And what
If
that
you,
opens up to you, right? That
well, you
self-love,
become
it,
love.
yeah, you become love, you're exuding that love, you're igniting
Yes,
that love, you're
yes,
suddenly seeing that love vibration rivering out there,
yes,
you're seeing other people respond to it and awaken to it. I say that we're all a book in life, and each chapter is going to be different. Otherwise, it would be a boring plot. And yes, some of the chapters you're going to get to the end of it and go, my God, whew, that was a
yeah,
heavy chapter. And then another chapter, wow, that I just floated through that. That was such an exciting chapter. But that's what life is about. I'm 66 now, and gosh, have I got some chapters, more than a decade's worth. It, but I look back every time I have to face something difficult. I look back and go, oh my God, this is nothing compared to what you've already been through.
right.
Just take
And
a
you
deep breath,
grow
girl.
and you
You
get
can do it. Yeah.
stronger.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Yes. It makes life so much more exciting when you're willing to put yourself in gear and participate in the experience
yes.
of life with self-love.
And co-create, right?
Yes.
Because it doesn't happen. It's the shift of it's happening to me, which is very much a victim orientation,
Yeah.
right? Versus it's happening by me and then through me, right?
Yes.
It's just the different energy about it. You really, after my mom passed, I had to sell her home, sell her stuff, everything. I had to close up a life, and my dad had, so both their lives. And I remember feeling, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And because I was in this very sort of Zen place,
Mm-hmm.
and I really feel like when people pass, there's sort of a portal that's open for a little bit. I really felt her for
Mm-hmm.
a few days there, and for that following week, everything fell into my lap. I found a realtor like this. I found someone to come take care of her garden. It was, and this was not in a city that I had lived in for 30 years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everything I needed to make it happen just came to me because I think I was in this very open receiving place.
You
And it just
allowed.
all fell into place. I allowed
Mhm.
instead of trying to will it to happen.
Yes. Or dictate.
Exactly.
In the beginning, your life was very much about dictatorship of what you have to do, what you should do, what you've got to do. You were driven by that
That's right.
until your life, as I said, cosmic two by four, and it was like, well, what are you going to do with this? Because there can't
Yes.
be any dictatorship on this. This is you have to allow. There is
What was
only
hard
one
for
way
me,
out, of this, and that's going through the process. It's like giving birth. There's only one way out, right?
that is true. I remember when I first heard that concept, what really struck me was, how do I just allow? Do I just sit here and let it happen? I don't really,
Yeah,
because I was so in this mode of just, ready to jump on anything, that I didn't realize that there was something in between willing and dictating and
mhm,
making things happen versus allowing them. There is a whole lot of room in there. And I wish I would have known that, because I only saw the opposite extreme. And I thought, well,
mm,
I can't do that. I've got stuff to do.
yes,
And now I realize it's just an easing up a bit
yes.
and listening to signals and signs and energy that might be coming at you, that if you're not open to it, you're not hearing it.
And they're always there.
Always.
Sometimes we have to remove ourselves from ourselves,
Yes.
right? Just be a blank slate. Go out into nature, go and do something, whatever form of meditation, remove yourself from yourself. And then when you come back into yourself, you're actually where you went meant to be. But that we're very, very much about chin up, thoughts,
In
thoughts,
our,
thoughts. We
yeah.
don't pay
Yeah.
attention to the soul, heart, and spirit's intellect, which has a very good intellect. And I'm a knowingness coach, so it's the channeling, allowing the universe to speak through you in knowingness, resonating with the heart and truth, going to the spirit into action, and the mind knowing what it needs to know when it needs to know it. You can't get into that knowingness state unless you switch off the thoughts and you
Mm.
allow the feelings to show you what thoughts are relevant in this moment. But
Mhm.
it is surrender, and people don't
It
like to
is
surrender.
surrender. That was another one I worked with for years. What does surrender mean? What does it look like? Just
And I
let
think that's
go.
again, we get stuck on the dictionary words instead of what is
Yes.
the action of the word.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yes.
You've written this book, it's only 3 weeks young, right? It's your whole life out there. You're getting great response. But how are you feeling about it? Not about the response, but you've bared your all now in that
Yeah.
vulnerability. Has it been a sense of release?
I think there was so much to get it out into the world that I was in my head, and I was, podcasts and interviews. And now that it's a little bit behind me,
Mm-hmm.
the launch, not the book, um, and I'm getting at least, a message a day through some channel of people I haven't spoken with in years and in decades, who are validating that, how brave, how much they can identify with the book. I'm realizing that, um, writing your story is what really connects you with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I am starting to feel this much more certainty,
Mm.
like this was the right thing to do. I think for a long time, I just thought, I have to do this. I have to tell my story. I'm going to put it out there. I wasn't sure quite what to expect. And there was some trepidation around, well, maybe it's too much. And are people going to judge me? But there was always something inside me that said, doesn't matter, keep going. Despite the fear, despite the
Yes.
bit of anxiety. And now I can tell you that anxiety is beginning to recede. I'm sure there'll be trolls or some people out
Oh,
there
yeah.
that will things that are unkind, but what I can, I have a much more felt sense now
Mm-hmm.
that telling your story from a very vulnerable place connects with others into that place. And my whole life, I only wanted deep, meaningful, intimate connection, because my parents weren't able to give it. They didn't have it
Right.
with each other. They didn't have it with us. They didn't have it within them. I've forgiven them, but I've really missed it. And
Yes.
of course, then I held myself in a way that I wasn't going to get it, because I wasn't allowing myself to connect
Right.
from the heart, because I was protecting it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm finally getting it
Mm.
through by basically putting my heart out there
Yes.
through this book,
Yes.
and being nervous and scared about it. And the early indication now is that was the right thing to do. And I am being shown that actually, no, this is what continues to connect you. It is the lesson that I will
Mm.
keep, that will stay alive with me over and over, in case I ever want to hide again. This won't allow me to do it.
No, no.
Right?
No, and I've actually interviewed authors that I've interviewed them before the book has come out, and then interviewed them again down the road, and they go, like, this person said they read this and it changed their lives, or it made them look at their
Yeah.
kids in a different way, and I go, I didn't realize it would have that effect.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about, never be afraid to tell your story, never be embarrassed, never apologize, because my God, there's some things that, when I do write my book, I think it's going to be, because I do a podcast every week on Sarah's view of life. And I think I'm going to be doing my book from that point of view, because it's my philosophy.
Right.
I don't think people would actually believe my story because it's really wacky. But at some point, maybe I will. Maybe I will write it out there when the time is right. And you're always shown when the time is right. But in the
That's right.
meantime, it's people like yourself that you've given that gift of vulnerability and trust to other people. That is the greatest gift you can give anyone. Because yes, you're going to get those trolls. You just ignore them. It's their own issue that they're trying to impose upon you, right? Just delete. Don't take it on at all. But the people that you've opened up to that may never contact you, but they've had this impact of, God, she went through this, she managed to do that, she's here now, she's in this state, she's moving forward. What's holding me back? Because most of the time people are being held back through fear. And a lot of that fear is judgment. What will
Yes.
people think? And when
Mm-hmm.
you can put yourself out there and say, look, I have no control over what you think,
Right.
none, but I
Yeah.
am in trust giving you my vulnerability. If it's
Yes.
nasty, keep your opinion to yourself.
And if you don't, it it doesn't really bother me, because as you said, it's not a reflection of me, it's a
Yeah.
reflection of what's happening with them. It took me a long time to get to this place.
Mm.
And I'm grateful. I'm just really grateful.
As you said, not everybody is ready to be woke. Right? And yeah, I think making people uncomfortable is also a gift. Because if you've
Yeah.
made them uncomfortable, you've shaken them up. Why am
Yeah.
I uncomfortable? Why is this too close to home? Why am I
Yes.
feeling like this? And sometimes we do need that shake up to wake up so we can step
Oh,
up and change
absolutely.
it up.
I like to say that you don't have to wait for a crisis
Right.
to re-examine your closely held beliefs and how you've held yourself. You don't, but usually it takes something, right? Because human nature is that changing is hard. We were saying
Mhm.
earlier, any kind of change is hard, and there's a discomfort that's
Yes.
associated with it. And most people are not going to change until the pain associated with staying the same is greater than the pain associated with
Yes.
changing.
Yes.
And I don't know many people who just get on their spiritual path or really go about a transformational change without some catalyst, whether it's a deep illness or
Hmm.
a death or something that has happened in their life, because it almost requires an intervention
Yes.
to break you out of that closed loop system of the self-fulfilling prophecy that you've been living in and what you believe to be true.
Yes.
What
Oh my
that is
God. I
for each
mean,
of us is different.
your parents were the way they were because of the way they were brought up,
That's right.
right? You decided, like I decided. My mom said to me, you've brought your children up the way you wanted to be brought up. And
Yeah,
breaking that cycle, we can't blame them for their cycle because it's what they knew. And
that's
most
right.
certainly in my parents' generation, um, one didn't put oneself first. One didn't fight for that. It was, especially British, suck it up, suck it up, keep it to
Yeah.
yourself. Nobody wants to know your dirty linen. And now it's like, yes, we want to hear these stories when we hear them from celebrities. You know, I suffer from depression. I was raped. I was abused. I was this or that. And people look at these people that they've put up on a pedestal and go, oh my God, they're human. They went through what I went through. And
Right.
what it does is it shows you, like, look what they can do despite what they're battling. We have so much more strength, resilience, courage, and abilities inside of us that we're denying ourselves if we're
Yes.
not willing to move forward and just so this tree trunk is pinning me down, but I'm going to find the strength to move it off me.
Really, really well said. Exactly.
So what's next for you? Is there going to be a part two, or are you book touring as much as you can right now with COVID?
Everything has been virtual, although as things are opening up now, I'm starting to do some in-person events. I'm starting to go into companies actually and speaking to employees and to women's groups because my book can be read in on so many different levels, right? It's a book about overcoming adversity and being vulnerable and building your resilience. It's also a book about being a woman in business and how I embraced some of the more softer qualities that are also needed in leadership, like collaboration
Mm-hmm.
and creativity and compassion and empathy, alongside the drive for results. And so I'm doing both personal events as well as company events. Um, and I am thinking about a second book already. I think my next one will probably be one that is more of a how-to, as they
Yeah.
call it, that comes in bite-sized pieces of how to um, how to show up in this
Hmm.
integrated place in at work and at home. Because the first book really was my journey to get to this place, how I first denied it, then how I
Yeah.
fought it, and then how I embraced it.
Yes.
And now I think the second book is okay, when you embrace it, what does it look like? What
Right.
does it look like at work to really manage the dualities of wanting to grow a company, but at the same time wanting to have a beautiful culture of connection and belonging. And so I feel like there's something in there because I do think work is becoming much more human. I think
Oh
companies are
gosh, yes.
becoming much more enlightened. And I would love for this book to be a little bit of a how-to of how companies might try to be both, try to grow without losing their humanity.
I think there's the three C's that are coming more into play now: collaboration, compassion, and caring. Because when you care for the people that work for you, you have that compassion that they're human beings, not robots, and you look to that collaboration of how we can all work together, you are going to see productivity go through
Yes.
the roof. And clients, the other C, are going to be much happier. We're not into that competitive, cutthroat, get it at all costs. That's passe now. We've seen an example of that at the highest level, and we've seen how destructive it is. So so many companies are turning now to, how do we collaborate? How do we show compassion and caringness? Because when we invest in our people not only show loyalty, but they feel heard, they feel seen, and that productivity as a team grows so much more.
Couldn't agree more. And I think that's a story that people want to hear.
Yes.
So and I'm trying to live it now at my company. So and it is not easy given everything we're dealing with, not only a global pandemic, but social unrest and political divisiveness. So, we used to, I remember, oh gosh, 10, 20 years ago, we used to talk about a VUCA world, virtual, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We're in it.
Yes.
We're in it. Leadership now is like playing 3D chess,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to come at it from a very holistic place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the next wave of books about leadership and business are going to hopefully come from a much more integrated place.
But also more from women.
I think
Because
so.
yeah, it is more the feminine touch now. As you said, we're in the age of Aquarius. As I have been told by various spiritual leaders, this transition is going to be another 4 years. Even 4 years before we see a complete back of COVID. It's going to still trickle in there for a while, but it is that beautiful cosmic shift of us having to step up. having to change it up, but also having to grow up. And that means vibrationally, but also emotionally.
Yeah,
Step out of your insecurity, step out of your ego, step into your presence,
that's right.
and be the beautiful person that you're really meant to be, and share that. And I think we're tired of the battle. We're tired of the way things have been, and we know that there has to be more balance, and there has to be more, as you've, in your reading your by the wholeness. We can't just address a portion of a person, we have to address the whole of a person. And that means taking more time to get to know people that we work with, and in doing that, kind of caring for who they are as human beings, not just another number.
I used to have this poster that I had behind me for years at my company that said they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
I like that. I like that
Yeah.
very much. And, I know that I flew Virgin one time, and I was talking to one of the air hostesses, and she said, I don't do more than 6 flights um, a month. And we have huge picnics, and they really look after us at Virgin. We are family, and we're going to do everything to keep this job because we're so well respected. So we respect the company. Hello, that seems to be a no brainer. you know, it's like, I always say this about the janitor when you walk into a business. If you're going into a big corporate business, you're about to see the CEO and do a deal, but every floor is dirty and the elevator is dirty and sticky, automatically you're thinking this company doesn't care. They're sloppy.
Mhm.
So your
Mhm.
janitor, the invisible person that keeps all of that clean, is the first presentation. So,
Mhm.
never dismiss somebody or put somebody up on a higher pedestal, because without all the people underneath them, what would they be?
That's right.
So you think
Absolutely.
there's more of a level playing field now, that the people are coming off that hierarchy and kind of slowly integrating and saying, yes, I may have the decision making, but I can't do it
I,
without you.
I think it's happening more and more often. There's a lot of different companies, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different industries. I think it's more prevalent in some than others. I think out here in California, especially in the kind of company I work with, which is a B Corp, which is really very mission driven. I think you see a lot more of that, much more balanced, holistic leadership, by men and by women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there's a lot of men that are stepping up, and I've interviewed a lot of businessmen, and it's about, as they've said, is it's not about me, it's about us.
that's right. That's right.
Right. So, and it's the same with a person who's a singer. What are they without the band? It's, you look at a movie and you've got those stars there, and then you look at the titles go on forever and ever and ever, and there's like 1,000 people that put that
That
movie
support
together.
them.
You're right,
That's right.
exactly. So,
That's right.
I think that is, you have a support system in any success, so why can't you have a support system in your own successful life?
That's right. Absolutely.
So, how do people get hold of your book? How do people get hold of you? And which kind of companies do you speak to? Only within your own company realm, or are you a speaker that can go out into other companies as well?
Um, well, you reach me probably the best way is through my website, which is lailatarraf.com.
Can you spell that
Uh,
for the people who are just listening, please, love?
LailaTarraf.com. And you can find my book, Strong Like Water, online at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Indie Bookshop. And it's also in physical stores all over the US. So hopefully you can find it everywhere. And in terms of my speaking, I'm available to speak outside of my company. I'm being asked now by people in my network whom I know. A lot of the companies are local here in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. But as things open up, I'll be available to speak more broadly.
Well, as you said before, when you're ready, the teacher is there.
That's
And the
right.
fact that you've become that mentor now. And you can't become a mentor without having gone through the process. Nobody's just labeled mentor. The mentor is, you've been through it. You know what people are going through. And if you don't know, then you know who else to call on that
That's right.
does know, because that's happened to them. So in your mentorship out there, you're inspiring other people to believe, yes, they can, if they're willing. And it really does come down to that free will, right? That choosing positive living instead of going, woe is me. We've all got a woe story. We've all got something that we could get stuck in. But does that serve anyone? Does anybody benefit from anybody being stuck in the woe is me?
No, and I think at the same time, it's important to say you need to allow yourself to be
Oh,
in
yeah.
those bad places, and then know that you come out of it.
Yes.
And knowing you're going to come out of it actually makes being in those places not as hard, because
Mm.
you know it's temporary. Even what we're experiencing now, it's
Yes.
passing.
Yes.
We
This
can
too
feel
will
it. We can
pass,
see it.
right? Yeah.
It's gonna pass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And emotions are there to indicate how we feel. Acknowledge the emotion, spend the emotion, but don't get emotional about the emotions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
Good way
So,
to say.
there's enough soap operas on TV. We don't need to become one. Thank you for finding the courage to write the book and share your story. I know it's going to be an inspiration to many people. So many people are going through transition. And when you think about it right now, with how many people who have lost family members, all over the world at the present moment. And they didn't get to say goodbye, which can be really, really hard. And so there's a lot of people that are stuck in that emotion, or they're having to be tough because now they've got to take on the whole role of their partner that's lost. And so your book isn't just one channel. It's many, many channels there that will hit many people on many levels. So I encourage people to go and get it. Plus a beautiful title, Strong Like Water. We can all be
Thank
strong like water. Water's whole great big huge multi-ton ships. Water's strong, folks. So
That's so right.
let's embrace the strength of the water. Thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Sarah. I really enjoyed it.
Remember, folks, we all can go through the process. We all can do this. Just look at the journey that she's had. Get the book, reach out to her. She's here to help you, to inspire you, to invite you, and just for you just even just know you can do it. So until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many, many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.